So on our show, we usually tackle whatever's happening in the news, give our opinions, maybe share some things you might not have found on your own.
Hmm,
Uh, John's, you're a big fan of Visual Studio Code. I
I
don't
am.
use it. I'm a big fan of it, but I don't unfortunately use it that often. I do like it. I just use Visual Studio, not the code version, too much.
That's fine.
But
That's
there's a
fine.
lot of great
Depending upon,
updates.
I know, depending on who you talk to, I mean, like you get the Vim crowd, right? Those are the people who think it's far more efficient, and as long as you can exit the thing,
My
that's the old
hands are
joke. But
never leaving this keyboard, John,
that's right.
because
That's right.
efficiency.
Yeah, but there's Emacs. I can't believe people still use that is the old meme as well. But no, VS Code continues to iterate strongly. And so the June 2023 release is now available. This is version 1.8. And for a minor update, it doesn't have a huge amount of features to it. I think it's just, I think the VS team is running out of features to implement. They've implemented so much. But yeah, variety of capabilities that have been added in the latest release. I think most
Accessibility is a
people
really
just,
nice one.
it is, yes. So for folks who obviously care about that, they've added a bunch of things now for a variety of commands, and then queues as well.
Yeah, speech to text is really important, or text to speech, I mean,
Hmm.
screen readers and all of that good stuff.
Hmm.
Workbench. What is Workbench? I don't know if is this like the is this the feature of Visual Studio, or is this like the panel? What is Workbench?
So Workbench within so there are times when you're utilizing VS Code, there's going to be parts and pieces of it. It's like the UI itself consists of a whole bunch of various panes, etc. So
That's your
you know, your um, you've got your text editing view, you've got your file view, etc. So the Workbench refers to the a set of components within VS Code itself.
gotcha. Some
So
editor
the way that those are
updates.
structured, the way that they're set up, you want to make sure that sometimes you can save their state, etc. So
Image support in terminal. Never thought about that. Thought about
that's
needing
right.
that. That's an interesting one. In case you want
Hmm.
to view an image right there.
Yeah, why not? Come on.
Testing support's nice. Um, we saw with
This
the
one we talked about earlier. Yeah,
yeah,
this one, the
that
ability
new
to just
plugin.
simply run within line. Yep, always
That's
important.
yeah. Notebooks are super popular, especially if you're doing any AI stuff. Uh, Data, what is it called? Big data stuff. Good. Looks like a pretty good update, John.
Yeah, nothing
Speaking of
major.
Microsoft things,
Hmm.
improvements to caching abstraction and ASP.NET Core. So it looks like they're chugging away on .NET 8 previews, and they've got some new caching capabilities in
Yeah,
.NET 8.
yeah, very important to keep this obviously ticking along, and folks want to make sure that they can obviously utilize this. So there's a caching abstraction as they talk about in .NET, and they're making it more intuitive and reliable. So you know, there's distributed caching is always a tough problem. Keeping things up to date, etc., is going to be important. So the idea here is that based on something like an example with Redis as a backend, you
Mm-hmm.
can implement this, and using this capability, you can obviously have a distributed cache within your application set, which is super awesome.
I was actually talking to a friend of mine over at Redis about this. I'm good friends with Guy Royce, and he works there as a developer advocate. And he said a lot of people use Redis for caching for .NET. Pretty popular, like combination of tooling there.
Yeah, yeah, it's nice because obviously it's relatively easy to set up and relatively easy to configure, and then utilizing it is pretty turnkey. I mean, it's a pretty canonical example in most blog posts these days, especially doing with anything with a distributed nature. So, but there's a new set of extensions you can use for distributed caching across the board. And the nice thing is that they talk about this in a variety of posts as well. But the idea is that you can utilize this with an Azure backend if you wanted. So there's Azure Cache for Redis. There's a bunch of other solutions that they're looking at doing as well. So this is good stuff. I think having a distributed cache is obviously important in this context. So this is a code example where they show off some of those improvements.
And this is up at devblogs.microsoft.com, and they have also links to their source code for the samples in the article, and they have an improving performance with cache, Redis cache here, kind of like a white paper as well. So good stuff, man. Also up on the Microsoft blogs, they improve the source generators, and code fixes arrive in .NET Community Toolkit. It's kind of a combo post. Two different things happen. They've got their previews coming out again. I would expect like another preview release in the next like week or two. I think they've been hitting on like the 14th or 15th of the month. And we had a holiday, so it, times may vary a little bit, but I'd say probably next week you might see another preview release. So it looks like they're building up to it here.
Yeah. So for those who don't know, the .NET Community Toolkit is basically, it's like a collection of like helpers and APIs that all .NET developers can use across any platform. So Windows, Mac, Linux, etc. Anywhere basically .NET is supported. And so these come in a variety of shapes and sizes. You'll typically spot them up on NuGet. They're like prefixed by Community Toolkit, which is its namespace. And there's a whole bunch of different APIs that are available there that you can check out. The repo is available up on GitHub. And so there's a bunch of source generators and code fixers. These are basically two things. So a source generator is something that runs in the context of the runtime environment. So at the JIT compilation level, source generators will allow you to emit we've talked about this before, but at runtime you can emit source to modify behavior. And so these have impacts on when and where you're going to utilize them. And so the other one is obviously the code fixers, and they wrap this one around the relay command, which is for automatically handling async methods. And so when generating these out, you can stub those out pretty easily. And then the analysis tool, which is part of the compilation step for checking those things.
Good stuff. Yeah, this is a time of year where they renew a lot of Microsoft MVPs. This happens throughout the year, usually every couple months or so. But this is the group that I'm also included in, so I was very aware of it this time around. So it is a renewal day. So I just want to give a shout out to a lot of folks in my renewal group. 20 years. Julie Lehrman has been a Microsoft MVP. Is that not absolutely amazing?
Only 20.
Yeah. She's also been a regional director. So big shout out to Julie. She's a fantastic person, by the way. If you ever get a chance to have a chat with her at an event or something, make sure you say hello. And then, this list goes on and on, by the way. I just pulled up the hashtag MVP buzz, and I see so many familiar faces in here. Joe Gadagno, Martine Dowden. So just giving people a shout out here. Kevin Griffin. This list would go on for days. I could scroll through. But see a lot of friendly and familiar faces there. Jessica Ingstrom, Stacey Cashmore, Chris Ante. Good guy. This is his second, I believe, second MVP award. So if you get a chance, drop into Twitter, type in MVP buzz, say congratulations, congrats to some folks. Jeremy St. Clair. Again, I could do this forever. So drop in there, say hello. Just thought I'd give that a quick mention. Say hi to some friends.
Nice.
Twitter, not threads. We're getting there, Fuel Snabble. We're getting there. That is actually up in the queue here very shortly.
Yeah, threads.
So speaking of Twitter, Fuel Snabble. Speaking of Twitter, I caught this post on July 1st. I don't spend too much time on Twitter these days because of reasons, uh, mainly because of this one. But there was a bug that caused Twitter to self DDoS itself. And this was an interesting post about it. So I guess what happened is, if you go back to the Twitter interface here, the way I understand it from this post is it is like prefetching tweets as you scroll. So there's, you don't see them loading in. It's just being prefetched ahead of time. And they tried to rate limit the interface because of, they say like bots and things. So they're trying to rate limit things. And in the process of rate limiting, I guess they caught themselves with a bug where it would try to prefetch. And when it was prefetching, it would try to read like some kind of metadata of the things that were coming in. And it failed to do that because it was hitting the upper limit of the rate limit. And it would cause it to, again, fetch the same data like over and over again. So it just went into like an infinite loop on people. So you'd start scrolling and then it would start doing this prefetch thing and you would get this going on in the background. So there's somebody that, is in the know of how these things work, and they're scrolling through Twitter and they notice some weird activity in their browser, and then they kind of see it just pinging its own API to death.
Oof.
You can see all the traffic just being pushed down.
Listen to you laugh. Listen to you laugh. You just love the state of this, don't you?
I love when bad guys fall down and hurt themselves.
Jeez.
But so they shot themselves in the foot, and it couldn't have happened at a better time, because today, Meta, I love them or hate them. You could hate both companies equally. I get it. You could choose to pick sides if you want to. But the Meta team has released a new app that is a Twitter competitor called Threads. And I guess it's kind of a sister product.
Named after the very frightening movie, I'm assuming.
I haven't seen the movie. What is that?
Oh God, don't, please.
Okay.
Don't. Yeah. All right. I'll take it. Something like this, I think competition is good. And like others are saying in the chat, I'm not a huge hater of Meta myself. I think that whatever, So I think this is fine. I have no I have it. Like I'll use my exalted status with my name as well to deem this as I will allow it. So
I feel a little bit trolled here with the Mastodon stuff. Mastodon's decent. The problem is the interface is terrible, and it's not great at surfacing like-minded threads of things. So in other words, it has no algorithm at all. So there's like this fine line between like you want it to do some sort of what is it called? Not machine learning, but what's the other term we like to use for the same thing? Predictive analytics.
Oh, okay.
A little bit of predictive analytics to kind of match you up with like-minded content. There's none of that at all on Mastodon. So it's only like who you follow, and you have to know those people through that social graph to find like-minded people. Hopefully the Threads takes a little bit of a middle ground approach and shares things that you actually want to invest time in reading, where Twitter has gone off the rails and you get a lot of crud in your timeline if you don't go through and like prune out a bunch of keywords and things from your feeds. So anyway, they've released this, and it is kind of a sister product to Instagram. which is pretty popular already. So, this might actually be some stiff competition
I'm sure it
coming up
will.
for
I'm
Twitter.
sure it will. Knowing Meta, I'm sure Meta's audience, it will either appeal to my parents or to folks in their 20s who like to take photos. So there you go. I don't know if this will appeal to tech folk.
Yeah, Thindle's right about Mastodon here. It's too complicated for most people. It takes you about 10 minutes to get the gist of what's happening. People aren't going to invest that kind of time. People have very
I
short
don't have
attention
10
spans
minutes.
these. I know.
Who has 10 minutes, Ed?
I mean, I could be reading conspiracy theories instead of spending that 10 minutes to
Can
learn
you scroll back up there
something
for
new.
a second? I just caught something. The headline. Just
Yeah.
go back to the headline. Millions join.
Oh yeah, it had like 10 million people join in the first like hour or something ridiculous.
Is okay. Hang on.
10
Is it
million.
they were yes, but were they signed up automatically, or were they like, I want to use that, and signed up themselves?
It says 10 million signups in 7 hours. It doesn't say how.
Yeah, that still doesn't. Yeah, that's like yeah. Okay,
I
great.
mean,
I have
if they put a push notification through Instagram, I could see it. If they're like, "Hey, try this thing that's a companion to Instagram. Click here."
yeah.
I could
That's
see 10
that's
million
not
people
indicative. I
downloading
know
it.
that's not indicative of a rush with a platform that has hundreds of millions of people using, right? So
Yeah. Uh, People are familiar with Instagram though. At big companies as well. People advertise through Instagram. Big companies are on there with their products. We call it DevRel. What's the generic term? Um, Brand advocacy. Like if you're not
influencing.
not in the tech, yeah, influencers, brand advocacy, that sort of thing. They're already
Yeah.
on Instagram and they've already created accounts on this as well. So it seems like maybe those people were in the know ahead of time, because they already have like fully filled out profiles for big companies that have commercial business. So it looks like they've got a good start with this.
Yeah, I
Uh,
feel like the internet's turned in with all these properties and services with social media. I feel it's like a virtual version of Burning Man, and you got all these people with these like stalls selling all their crap for like $50. And I'm really kind of like people with like face paint and weird stuff going. I'm like, I'm done. I don't want to do. Where is the I'm like, I don't want to be here anymore. This is all terrible.
John's
I
sharing
know.
his old.
I
It's
know.
called just being old,
I
John.
don't mind. Look, I don't mind change. Change is fine, but it's just it's wash, rinse, repeat over this. We're mulching over the same grass here, like this. I don't know. I get it. Like they're trying to compete, but is this like I don't know. I don't see any interest in doing this. Like I
So
kind of
here's
I
something
have mis
interesting
I what's that?
that you might not have read about Threads. Is there it's in the UI as well, but it says that they're going to be federated pretty soon. It's not the initial rollout, but they're allowing federation along with this service. So
So
that
what
that's
does that
also.
mean? Sorry, I'm not asking. I know if you don't know, that's fine. But what does that mean to you, the Federation?
So these are different instances of the service on different servers, for example.
Hmm.
Mastodon does this, like by default.
Yes. Hmm.
So you can have a different instance of Mastodon, and it does a pretty decent job at surfacing the different instances to each other. So you
Okay.
can, you're not completely locked out of one Fediverse, or whatever terminology they use for it. Uh, if you join a different one. Um, but the idea here is to move your data to a different federation if you don't like the way that it's being kept on one or another. So if like Twitter, for example, there's been this hostile takeover there. Maybe you disagree with who's ever in charge of that. You're like, well, I'm just going to take my data elsewhere, go to another federated service that is serving up threads.
Who cares? Who cares? This is all stupid. Like, sorry, I'm gonna get off my soapbox here, but it's just no one cares.
Phil
No one
Snabel's
cares
going
about
to
this.
impersonate Barack Obama on
Yes,
a
I know.
non-claimed federation. So there is that. It's
Ah,
different. It's a differentiator. It's
I
something
know,
that
but it's
they're trying to play this middle ground between Mastodon and Twitter, and then of course there's the one that shall not be mentioned. There's that
yeah.
one too,
I
and
heard
of
about
course
Blue
Blue Sky
Sky.
too.
I have an invite for that. I haven't utilized it yet. I've been slow on that, so it's just like
Yeah, so this one's been invite
getting a
only.
headache now.
The problem with that is the invite only means there's just people that aren't there that you want to talk to. I don't see that working out too well for them. 50,000 users as of April, where Threads has already got like 10 million, they say. They do mention in here too. So this is what I'm saying. Billboard, HBO, NPR, Netflix were set up and launched within minutes. I in my opinion, they may have known ahead of time. It seems like they got an early invite because they were ready to go before anybody even had an account. Like if you look at the posts, they're like really just hitting it
Well,
out
if
of the
you're
gates.
smart, yeah, that's what you're gonna do for
Yeah.
sure.
So anyway, spent enough time on that.
Yes,
Let's get back to some more developer news.
please, please, and thank you.
I had to mention it. It's tech related, man. Not only is
Sure.
it tech related, it's been the way a lot of us developer community folks have communicated for quite some time until the bad things started happening, and now everybody's kind of everywhere. So beautifying your UI, giving GitLab build features a fresh new look. What do we got, John?
So yeah, GitLab's been marching to a steady drumbeat as well. They recently shipped version 16 as a major release. They're up to 16.1 now. And one of the initiatives that they've kicked off is the Beautifying Our UI initiative. And this is, I guess, a bit of a realization that GitLab itself can be a little bit, not as pretty as it could be. And so GitLab, to their credit, I mean, almost to a fault, they're very transparent in terms of where they're going with regards to their product direction. This is a blog post that talks a little bit about some of the improvements that they're making to a variety of parts and pieces of their design. So, namely, things like their pipeline rendering page, I guess. So, you see on the top the before and then underneath the after. It's funny. It looks a lot like TeamCity to me, but there you go. So, but if you're running a pipeline within the context of GitLab, for those on GitHub, this is the equivalent of an actions run. Pipeline is just basically a series of steps, actions that run in concert. They have a new rendering for that. There's things like, badges and link styles on a pipeline list view for harmonization. So before and after, top, etc., bottom.
Good example there. I like that.
Yep. Another example is linking runner number to runner admin page. So the idea is that, when you issue a runner, which is basically a machine that's executing your pipeline, sometimes it can be hard to correlate those things. And so by providing a link and number within there, you can quickly jump into the terminal for that. And so you can see the terminal running on that runner, and then you can link to it on the right there. So that's another example. And then finally, they're improving their tooltips and button text. So when you hover over things, it will give you a little bit more context. So these and other kind of features are being additive in the context of beautifying their UI relative to GitLab. And I think a lot of times we forget that, GitLab itself is punching pretty much above its weight to a certain extent. It's doing a lot of things really, really well and giving GitHub a run for its money, in my opinion.
I think it's due time. We need to bring back the skeuomorphic UI. I mean, this should be like faux leather and like little stitching around the.
I think
buttons.
Apple 2011 called. They want their design ideas back. So,
oh come on! It used to be fun.
That's right.
Fun stuff. You just need to look like an old school radio buttons.
Sure.
John, have some imagination.
I have plenty.
Deno 1.35, fast, convenient way to build web servers.
Yeah, so Deno is a runtime environment for JavaScript. It's again like GitLab punching above its weight. And not to say that GitLab's like small by any means. I don't mean it to say it that way, but Deno is the runtime that could and is utilized particularly around secure runtime environments. So it's known for that quite well. Really good performance relative to execution of JavaScript. So there's some niceties there. And Deno 1.35 has recently been shipped, where they add a new API called Serve. This one was actually under development for a while. And what this allows you to do, obviously, is now provide a web server API around Deno. So that's now stable, which is great. So the idea is now you can execute these and do a request response model via HTTP. This has been evolving over time, but this is
That looks
this is an area where a lot of people. Sorry.
looks quite a bit like minimal APIs in .NET, doesn't it?
Sure. Yep. Yep.
Very
So
familiar.
yeah, that's the big one there in 135. They add a bunch of other supplemental changes, but that was the big one. Basically, the ability to execute serve is now stable. Basically.
So this is the competition here. We're trying to be faster than Node.js with less memory.
Well, yeah.
Interesting. Cool stuff there.
hmm
Oh, we got another GitLab one. GitLab for
Yeah.
Visual Studio.
Yeah. Yeah. So for those folks who are curious about utilizing GitLab, it now is available via obviously a VS extension. So this is obviously great if you're wanting to utilize features like GitLab Duo, which is their sort of AI. It's kind of like their competitor to Copilot from GitHub. So if you're utilizing GitLab, this is an extension you probably want to go to install. You set it up via its credential management, and then use it in the context of the code editing experience. Duo will provide code suggestions in line with NVS, so you'll see those prop up there. The big selling point for GitLab is they tout this quite heavily, is that GitLab does not provide this, and as opposed to Copilot, which is utilizing source code utilized from public repos, if I've got this correctly. Duo is done differently. It's a private, I believe, LLM. I can't think of the right terminology. I could be completely wrong here, but that's what I remember seeing in the webinar for GitLab 16. They tout the fact that none of your code is shared as part of that large language model. And so that's something that you can utilize there. And they talk up obviously their AI and ML features in this blog post.
Yeah, it looks like there's a little aside here at the bottom too. It says they're not only working on Visual Studio, but because they have this GitLab language server, they're looking at tying into
Yep.
JetBrains as well. So that's nice.
Yep. So language servers have, for those, we've talked about this many times here, is that all the IDEs now support what's called the language server protocol, or LSP. LSPs are basically a way in which you can just simply have it defines whether you know it or not. It defines a request response model. So you can, and the reason why this is nice is because when you write extensions, you can do it as an eventing sort of paradigm, and that gives you better stability within the IDE. It also gives you portability, which is great. So if you define a LSP, you can define the implementation and put it into a different hosting container on a different IDE. So you can have it run across Sublime Text or
Yeah.
Rider or Visual Studio Code or VS. They all support it.
It's kind of like a middleware almost.
Yep, that's pretty much it.
Let's see, fuel symbols. So what do they train on if they don't use public code? So I don't know specifically for this use case, but I know with things like ChatGPT and other AI models, you might have a public giant pool of things that it trains on, and
Stack
then
Overflow.
you can attach your data to it without it becoming part of the public pool, and then it will kind of add that to the training. So it's like an additive type of experience.
Based on what I saw them tout during their webinar, they have a release. They had a big keynote address last month for version 16. My understanding, and this is a very primitive, basic understanding, so don't hold me to this, is that they will utilize your source code in a private sense, but they won't share it publicly. So they'll generate a model on top of your private data hosted within GitLab, but that won't contribute to a larger sort of
Yeah.
model. So
Yeah, it won't bubble up into other people's generation or answers or anything
you
like
won't
that.
don't worry, you won't see my bad code.
Right, John. On to some more fun stuff. This is just weird. I thought it was fun to share. You might actually find this kind of cool. It's usually the trigger John element, but this you
Yep.
might actually think is neat. Did you read about this at all?
I
There's
saw a
a
clip of this. I saw this on Twitter and I was like, what is that? I don't know. It scares me. I will close the window.
So I guess one of the biggest entertainment venue companies in Las Vegas built this new dome, and inside and outside are these giant LED screens. And the outside, I mean, the resolution on the outside of this thing is pretty amazing from
So
the
they
images I've
built a
seen.
planetarium, is what you're telling me.
Yeah, but they've covered it with
Great.
these digital screens. 300 feet. This dome is just massive.
Perfect.
And when you see
Perfect.
pictures of it, it looks
Yeah.
fake. Like you don't think like this looks real at all. It looks like CGI or something. This is a real thing. So they're able to put these.
I'm getting very strong. What is that? What is that movie with Keanu recently? They redid. You know, where he arrives in the big sphere and all that sort of thing. I'm getting very strong vibes from that. Looks cool.
Yeah, they can
America.
project
There you
nearly
go.
anything on it. Well, they opened it during 4th of July week.
This is what I'm all about, Ed. The America. Come on.
So, yay nationalism. Woo. So they've got that. Let's see.
My God.
Just some
beautiful.
Hello World.
Hello
That's great.
World. Yeah,
Love
perfect.
it. I heard the inside of this thing is pretty amazing as well, but everybody can see the outside. So that's what you're getting a lot of views of.
I'm sure
right
the
now.
memes are going crazy. Like this is like the Death Star, Star Killer sort of embedded pimple on the Vegas Strip now. So there you go.
But the inside of this is supposed to be just as amazing. I think it's even higher resolution.
Okay.
I don't know if the inside is a projected screen or if it is LED like this one. But they're going to have a concert in it soon.
All right.
And they're saying the screen can do like an augmented reality type of thing, and they're going to have like this interactive type of a display with the concert. So I thought it just looked pretty neat.
As much I know you're looking for a reaction from me, something like this is actually I think far more reasonable. The fact that you don't have to pay for the price tag, although Vegas is 2.3 billion. That's yeah, that's a lot. But yeah, I would check this out. That looks pretty cool.
Yeah.
What happens when it rains?
It gets wet.
Does like the eye does the eye like get all crusty and stuff as well? Like, do they have to clean it? I guess being in Vegas makes it a perfect location. Yeah, here we go. The memes.
The memes begin.
Perfect. Yeah.
I was hoping they had something about the inside of it up here. I should have flagged that article as well. I did not. So it's promising though. It's kind of a futuristic venue.
There you go.
And I don't live anywhere near Vegas to probably ever see it, but who knows? So you got some fun things that you're sharing with me, John.
Yeah, so the Windows Task Manager is a piece of software that's been around since, I guess, forever. This shipped back in the 90s, I remember. And the original developer is a man by the name of David Plummer. And this is a video on YouTube where he posted this talking about the initial motivations behind Windows Task Manager and all the sort of things that went into it, etc. This thing used to be like, this is the kill dash 9 switch basically for all processes on Windows, but he basically gives the historical context, how this shipped in Windows NT, how you would bring it up using Control Alt Delete, the various modes, etc., the reasons why they needed this, etc. I mean, let's face it, the Task Manager wasn't always the best piece of software, so they needed something, obviously for NT. They needed something far more serious, and so David talks about it here in his video, and I thought it was kind of cool. And so, if you're at all interested in learning about the history, the motivation, the things that went into this, David from the horse's mouth here, talking about the product itself. So, definitely something worth checking out.
Yeah, this reminds me of a video series I used to watch. It's a little bit older, not too old though. I think it's from the early 2000s. Um, but they contacted game developers from the 70s through like the 90s, and got like their stories about problems and things that they had to solve when they were creating their games. And some of them were like,
Yep.
memory limitations of a console, or the discs, stuff like that. Um, One of them was about the game Myst, because like nobody had CD-ROMs at the time, and they were trying to figure out like how to release it to everybody and have it to where it actually loads fast enough to feel like a video game.
Right.
So I'll have to find those and share them with you. It's very similar type of format. You know, it's these problem solving type of things, and it's people that came up with these brilliant ideas, like reliving the glory days of like kicking that problem down and figuring out how to resolve it.
Nice.
And then we've got one last one here, John. Everybody loves the good old Clippy.
Yes.
So
Yes.
this is
It's another video,
Clippy.
yeah, I found. Yes. So this is from the original designer talking about Clippy. This is something that's been around for a very long time. Those of us who have gray hair will remember this a lot. And so this is a video talking to the original designer of Clippy and the motivations that went into this. And yeah, so I mean, Kevin unfortunately has had the unfortunate designation of creating some of the most hated software on the planet, i.e., Clipit, which is the actual official name of Clippy. But I think kudos to him. Like, he did a good job of creating this based on the requirements that were put for him. Obviously, I think folks like Alan Cooper dubbed this like the tragic misunderstanding of research that was conducted by Stanford University that went into this. But
Bob.
the idea here is that they wanted to create these agents that would help people or assist people when using computers. I remember Microsoft Agent, which is what it evolved into, and you could program these things. And I thought it wasn't such a bad idea having this avatar that you could interact with. But the problem with Clippy was just so like invasive and like insistent, and like would disrupt your flow, and you couldn't find the please go away button fast enough. So
I
yeah,
feel like
there
we've
were
come full
variations of
circle.
this. Yes, I
Like
know.
this is
I
now
know.
Siri and Schmalexa. I won't say the full
Sure.
name because it'll
Sure.
start responding.
Yes.
Or they just changed the terminology on it. It's Microsoft uh, Copilot. It's just Windows Copilot, right? That's the new one.
Yeah. There's
And
there's the there's the AI assistant in Windows 11 now. So
mhm.
yeah.
I mean, these
So
were
this
just dumb versions of that, right?
I guess so. So if you're looking for nostalgia, and believe it or not, he goes in the video here, he talks about how they did a lot of corporate test, like user design testing, and everyone picked the clip
Everybody
version,
loved
the
Clippy.
Clippy. That's right. So with those dead eyes. So
I found
yeah.
these, by the way. So if you go into Google or YouTube and you type "War Stories from Ars Technica," this is 32 episodes, by the way. 32
Yeah, I saw
episodes
this.
of
Yeah.
these. Oh, you've seen these before. I might have shared
Yeah,
them
I
a
have,
long time
yes.
ago as well.
Yes.
But they're actually really, really interesting to
They are.
watch
They're
from an
excellent. They're
engineering
excellent.
perspective.
Yep.
They're all different in what problem they had to solve. And I think there's even one on here about Prince of Persia, which is really
Yeah, I saw
interesting.
that one. That I think we talked about that one. How there was like memory constraint. You just scrolled past it.
Did I?
There was total. Yeah, yeah. There's all types of interesting problems they had to solve. You were just hovering on it. 2 down, 3 down, 1 down.
Oh, there it
There.
is.
Yeah. So yeah, they talked to all the original authors of various games, etc. I always like the story behind Halo. That is the massive multiplayer engine behind Halo, which allowed you to do network gamings. I thought that was an excellent story. I would argue was instrumental to establishing the foundation of Azure to a certain extent. But they talked to a lot of developers, and this is a story about how they created Prince of Persia, and so
Mhm.
very interesting.
Yeah, the one about Prince of Persia is interesting for a couple of reasons. They really dive into like the memory limitations at the time.
Sure.
But the other limitation was the guy was a coder. He was not an artist, so he had to figure out how to make his character move without it looking ridiculous. So he had his brother just go
Yep.
out and he videotaped his brother like doing
Smart.
the
Perfect.
maneuvers, jumping over, a piece of sidewalk and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
and he
And
took
then
what he did here. You'll notice in the background if you go back just a couple of frames. What he did was he applied a mask filter, so you can see you can see the images, and he digitized those to formulate his sprites basically for
mhm,
the game, so that they looked
yeah,
very realistic.
it's just fascinating. Like
Hmm.
that's problem solving at its finest. That's why I like
Yeah,
these.
100%.
So the story you shared reminds me very much of these as well.
Yes.
So make sure you get on YouTube and check those out. It was War
Yes.
Stories, and this one's called Inside Task Manager, and then I
And I
Created
created
Clippy.
Clippy.
Those are all fun watches. It's
Yep.
fun to listen to too if you're busy working, writing some code. You want
Yeah.
something to put on in the background. That's what I usually do. So check those out. And I think that is the end of our list for today, John. So, John, I'll talk to you next week. It's been good chatting with you.
Yeah.
Take care, chat room. See you soon.
See ya.